Hello, welcome back. So, in this session, what we'll be focusing on is learning about distinct and the where clause. So, in SQL, there is a keyword called distinct, and if you don't understand that you can actually use it to solve some problems, you may end up um, going round in circles. But if you know that this keyword exists, you'll be able to use it to solve the most difficult problem that may, apply to you when you're doing some data analytics. And on the other hand, we'll be talking about the where clause as well. And the where clause, which is also a way of filtering our data. So enough of this talk. Let's just go into our management studio and bring this in action for you to see. So now we let me see if we have an existing database we can use. This was from our previous video, so I'll just delete this student table. Okay, the table seemed to have been deleted already. I just need to refresh the database. So we don't have any table there. Good. So now you understand primary key, you understand identity, so I don't need to go into that. And what we will do this time is just create the table with both. So we have a table with a primary key and identity. So let's just create that. And we will put in some data. So I already wrote the insert statement, and you must understand what this means. This means comment, meaning SQL Server should ignore anything that comes after the double slash, double dash rather. So we have double dash here. It means all this will be ignored, and there's a comma here which means that comma should be ignored as well. So if I highlight this and execute, it should work just fine. So we will come back to this later. There's a reason why it's there, so you'll see that in action in a bit. You already know about select, right? So let's say we want to select everything from this table from students. So in this table that contains list of students, you can see that we have a number of students, 5 students, and their age. You can see the city in which they are, and you can see my name there as well. I happen to be the youngest in this class, so we have some people between the age 20, 26, 30, and different people: London, New York, Lagos, and so let's say you have a data set like this, right? And if you just want to select city from this, you can just say select city from students, and you will have only the city back. Now what distinct does is, from the meaning of distinct from English word, is to say the one that is distinct out of this data set. So as you can see, we have London coming up twice. So if I wanted the distinct, that means I don't want London to be repeated. I just want one occurrence of London. So if I said select distinct city from student and execute that, you would see we now have 4 rows back. Let me bring both tables back so that you can see both of them side by side. So I'll drag this up. So here you see we have 5 rows returned. Here we have 4 rows returned. And the reason for that is because we have distinct value for each of the cities there. So that's one side to distinct. There's nothing difficult about learning about distinct. You just need to understand how it behaves in different situations. So for example, if I wanted the first name and city back, you can see that we have 5 rows returned, and there is James, who happens to be in London, Victor in New York, Simon in Lagos, Darren in London, and Dave in Chicago. If I did distinct, let's see what happens. You can see that we have 5 rows returned as well. When we did that for city, what happened was we had 4 rows returned from here. and this is the part that we had distinct. You would have imagined that for first name and last name we should also have 4 rows returned, but here we have 5. And the explanation to this is because when you're selecting multiple columns, the distinct is actually going to work across the columns that you're bringing back. So that means a distinct of both first name and city together is what we're asking for. So even though for city we have London coming up twice, we have Dare and James in London, so they are both distinct. So that's why it has behaved this way. So if you set distinct for first name and city, then you're saying give me distinct values across these two columns. But if you set distinct across only one column, it's actually going to bring back all the distincts across just one column. It won't evaluate it against another column. So that's how distinct behaves in this case. So there's nothing more to understand about distinct. And if we were to now go a little bit further and start talking about the where clause, so that's what I've written out here to introduce where clause, right? So let's now take an example from our existing select statement. I'll pick this one, and if I wanted to select only students that are from London, I can say where city equals London. And remember, anytime you're writing string or characters, you have to put them in single quote. If I was using a where clause that has to do with number, for example, let me show you that. So if I were to use person ID, because it's number, I don't have to put this in single quote. Okay, so just thought I should let you know that. So let's go back to this, and we can see that we only have 2 records returned back to us, and that's the function of where clause. That's what where clause does. It helps us to limit and filter data. So if for example I want people who are in Chicago, given the where clause and filtering by city, I can only get this back. So select first name city from student, where city equals Chicago. And similarly, if I wanted from New York, that's the same thing that we will get. It will give us different data, as long as this evaluates to true. So if it evaluates to true, meaning if it finds that there is New York in city, that means it evaluates to true, then it will return data. If it doesn't evaluate to true, let's say for example we have Essex. We know there is no Essex in our table, right? So you can see it evaluates to false and it doesn't return any data back for us. So that's what where clause does for us. So we will be doing a lot more on where clause, but to do that I need to teach you what operators are, because I can't be going into that right now unless you understand what operators are. So in the next video we will go deep into operators, and then we will come back to where clause and do some more filtering with the where clause. See you in the next video.